Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin and John
Sully,
Sullivan.
hi.
Yay! So, you guys might recognize Sully from one of my prior podcasts we did about a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple months ago. And, I got a lot of positive feedback about having Sully on the podcast, besides the fact that he's awesome and a dear friend of mine. And also the producer, sound designer, musician. There might be a couple titles I'm missing there for my album that's coming out, which is titled Shraddha. And I think that's a good starting point for us on the podcast. And by the way, we might also have a
Extra guest.
third guest. Yeah. Jinx, my cat. So we're filming from home, my studio in beautiful St. Petersburg. So how are you, Sully?
Oh, good. I love being here. I'm coming up from Sarasota. Erin's been great. She's a newbie up here, and she's been invite me to come up here because I'm also contemplating doing more things up here. So every chance I can get up, see you, and really a beautiful city. It's so gorgeous here. It's amazing. It is one of the most relaxing urban environments I've ever been in.
It's very friendly. Just walking down the street, people are smiling. It just seems like people are happier.
Hmm. Yeah, there's something healthy about the city. That's what I would say is when I go to urban centers, I'm not expecting healthy.
Just to be friendly and
Yeah, I
smile.
mean, I'm fine with it. That's the territory. So when I come here and I get that sense, I think it makes the place special. It does, and not for everybody, which that's fine. Showing your tail.
Um, so today's podcast, we wanted to start off on the topic of Shraddha, which is there's different translations, and with many Sanskrit words, what I do is I embody the word and the vibration and the meaning, along with research via spiritual scripture, and I try to apply it with the as we went to the Shambhala Meditation Center today. There's in one of the scriptures the word awareness wisdom. So awareness wisdom is the wisdom that everybody has if we choose to be aware. So if we choose to be in this present moment, what happens is fear isn't as loud of a signal as some of the other things that are kind of moving through us, echoing through us. And Shraddha is like faith on the spiritual path. Like the next stone is going to appear. There's like some sort of like moving force behind that. So part of it is maybe some kind of hope, belief,
Hmm.
but certainly for me, it's this feeling of wholeness, of coming into union with Source,
Hmm.
coming into union with God, and then being moved by it. It's been one of the great, I guess, revealers on my path is just like giving it up to God, like trusting in the path. And to do that, people might be like, okay, well, sounds great, like dear God, but like God is within.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
I think you won a prize.
I'm not sure if we'll edit that out or not, but yeah.
Well, I felt this. I agree, Jinx, 100% with
Yeah, thank
everything
you.
she said. So,
For our audience. So there's this force that makes jinxes sneeze, but there's this force that's kind of greater than us that exists. And if you can do practices to uncover that signal, which we all have within us, it's just we were talking earlier about the digital versus analog, and yeah, if we can activate that force within, then we do have this sort of like guiding light, this guiding force that is nurturing, compassionate, and kind of reveals the path. But it's hard to get out of our own way. And so, my life where it's at right now is like trust is a huge thing. Like trusting in the impermanency of uncomfortable feelings, trusting in my resilience, and that I've gained what was the word that we were using earlier? Merit.
mhm.
That I've gained merit through, mostly consistently staying with the practices I've been staying with. So So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Man, you put so much out there so correctly in such a straight line, which is usually what I'm trying to do.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It felt kind of good.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It was really, really straight. It's like I was trying to hold on. Okay, I know what I can say with that. Oh, I know what I can say, but it just went. You really took it. You really took it right to its destination, which I really appreciate because it was hitting me as you were saying. So I think the only way I can get back on that ride that you were just doing now is if I go back to the first things that came to me, and you started talking about the record, and what was the word trust you used for the
Shraddha.
yeah, so Shraddha. So it's interesting because then after you said that, you went down these other words, right? And the idea of like, what is the meaning of the words? And sometimes trust has its own place, but then you said something that I thought was really interesting, you know, hope. Like,
Mm.
I never really connected those two things together, but of course, hope is at the core of it. So it's like you have trust, which you're putting out there. So trust is almost like an extension of hope.
Mm.
Because if you have no hope, you're not even thinking about the trust.
Yeah, how can you even get there if you don't have hope of like some progress or betterment? Or, as we went to the Shambhala Meditation Center today, and they're talking about like, um, you know, staying like continuing with practices, how like things will be provided.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So that's really interesting because, in a way, there could be some kind of what's the word I'm looking circular belief system. Another word, belief, you use like is trust. A belief is hope. Trust is belief. Hope. All
Mm.
these things start this engine that starts to go
Yeah,
where,
momentum, like
right?
spiritual momentum.
Correct.
One of the reasons why it's so important to be around spiritual community is like you give each other momentum. Like you're giving of your energy freely. Like there's like in chemistry, there's like free radicals or nutrition, free radicals, and then there's antioxidants. Antioxidants, what they have extra, I think it's electrons. They just give freely. So, and it's like if you're connected to that spiritual source, it's like you give that freely. Like you're fueling the people around you.
So that trust needs some kind of fuel, right?
Yeah.
So that's what, when you were speaking, that's where I was like, okay, maybe that's where I can get in. Because at the end of the day, we're doing a podcast. Hopefully, you're listening. There's hopefully a reason you're listening. You're trusting us to have faith that we believe what we're talking
We're
about.
gonna take you somewhere
Yes,
interesting,
yes,
or at the
yes.
very least entertaining.
Yes, yes. So I also feel that there's a lot of that that's the same for me. I was mentioning before coming from New York, so I said I'm going to leave New York and come down to Florida. There's a whole list of reasons why that was, but really the truth of the matter is this exercise of trust, to pull it right into the spiritual right away, and in a kind of a Western context, which I will use a lot of times because of my European heritage. I would say that to get that angelic power, you need to test it. You
Mm.
need to go up to the edge and show I have faith, I have trust, I have hope.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're never going to utilize, right? We're talking about that energy, that food. So, yeah, maybe when we first trust and it doesn't work out the way that we are, it's just because we're just beginning it. And sometimes if we trust and that trust didn't work out the way we want, we go and shut down again.
Mm.
But
Yeah. Like why me? Why God?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, right. But what I'm putting out to you is it's something like anything else. It's like a muscle that has to be worked out. It's like it's
Yes.
not just the trust because it works out. It's also got to be the trust when it doesn't work out, and that trust has to be down the road. You're going to look back and go, ah, that's why it didn't work out.
Yeah, because that was just a stepping stone on the path. Yeah.
But I really believe taking those chances, really going out there on those chances, is the true path of spirituality because that is that angelic energy. And to me, the word angel is not angel, it's angle, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Arc, angel. No, arc is an angle. So it's an art angle. And again, we're talking about analog energy, digital energy. It's the arc of the sun, the ray of the sun. It's the light of that sun. It's that faith in the sun that the sun itself is going to rise the next day. Yeah,
Son of
it's
God, as you said
Son of
earlier.
God, right? All this metaphor has been around forever. And it has seasons. There's winters when it's cold and everything dies. And unless you come to sunny St. Pete, we stay alive 24/5. We have a couple of months where it gets a little, a little chilly, but yeah, a little cold snaps. But we'll take what we can get. But at the same time, that whole aspect is that believing that the light will return, and the trust doesn't necessarily mean that it's all going to work out. The trust means that you're going to get through it. That's really what the trust is all about. And then getting through with that trust is where the growth is. That's really so. I think people get caught up in trust, belief, proof, hope. All these things get caught in because, like you said, we're trying to get somewhere. Well, where are we trying to get? We're trying to grow. We're trying to get somewhere that's going to take us where we know we aren't now. And if we just do everything exactly the same and stay in the same safe place, we're never going to get on that journey. So that's why trust is great, but there's so much that's in what that trust is. And if I could add one more thing, and I think this goes for a lot of people. It doesn't happen right away, but I think trust is where the fun is. That's where most of the fun is. Yeah, but that's as humans when the hair goes up on the back of your neck and you get that little and then it makes you breathe. And again, in what we're talking about, what we're primed for, it's all about breathing, right? And sometimes it's all about holding your breath. So those scary moments, and you hold that breath. I mean, that's what that is. That's the spirit entering into you, telling you it's gonna be okay. Just hold on. We're gonna get through this. All these things. And then when you get through it and it happened and you went with that trust. Sorry, I'm hitting my microphone. I'm just an animal. I get excited myself and your heart beats a little faster and your blood fills with oxygen and your eyes open wider and your ears open wider.
Yeah.
And like I said, the hair stands up in the back of your neck and you break out in a little sweat and you breathe in deeply. That's what's fun. That's what makes life fun. That's what makes life worth living.
And that's what makes the change.
That's the
It's like,
change. Yes.
it reminds me, I've been getting back into body work a little bit more because I'm in different communities and it's kind of like connecting with people on the physical level is a lot of times their entryway into yoga or spirituality. And I was working with this gentleman, and my body work was a bit new to him, but I was like realigning his joints and like releasing his pectoralis minor and psoas. And it was challenging. He was breathing through it, and I was like, journey through it. I was like, we can always have a dialogue. But he had an endocrinic response. He started like sweating, and it was because his body was temporarily perturbed. But then afterwards, oh boy, he's standing up taller. It's like the look in his eyes, you could tell he was more grounded in his body. And so there needed to be that little bit of like change, which is perturbance, and then something can change directions or trajectory. So part of it, one of my coaches used to say, a great determining factor of your success is how well you can sit in the discomfort. Not indulge in it. So I just want to be clear about that. Not to indulge in like, woe is me, coddle me. It's more of like, no, 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 okay, you're suffering and have some compassion because that lubricates the tracks and then be able to walk through it.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we have too many, if we're too comfortable, we don't have motivation
Yeah.
to move forward. Why would you?
Yeah.
If your bills are being paid, my microphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
If your bills are being paid by somebody else and all the things are taken care of for you, why bother improving? You're too comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So then I find that the universe is going to throw you something to make you grow. Then
There's no way around it.
Find some discomfort in another way, some kind of to attach to certain things in your life, and then they get taken away. Or so it's like it's important to have a spiritual practice. Certainly makes life at least a little easier, and then it's still not easy a lot of the times.
Well, you bring up a really good point, and again, this just popped in my head right now with what you're saying, and that's like maybe something to offer the audience as this idea is that if you really look, especially in Western civilization, but I think it's a global civilization now, which basically is just commercialism. Not saying right or wrong, not saying good or bad, but we have been generationally now trained that the journey we're on is just how do we make life as easy and as comfortable as possible. We don't even realize it, but it's like that's what we're searching Amazon for. That's when we're going shopping. We're putting lots of brain power and heart power into thinking how clever we are to really, jack the system to make it to where how can we do as little as possible? Hence the really super popularity of AI, which is the same super popularity was for Google search and the super popularity of computer software. All this effort that's being put in there. So how can we make it so we don't have to do so much? But notice everybody that we just keep doing more and more and more. So obviously something is wrong with that, and I think it's just a diversion. It's not getting easier. In fact, that'll never be easier. In fact, I don't think that's the plan. I don't think the plan is to come down here and how can we make it as easy as possible. I'd say it's probably opposite. I would say us as potential source energy before we arrived in these personalities was everything was possible, and where we are here is extremely limited on purpose because it's us having to draw that energy that gives us that feeling of fun. That's really what it comes down to. As you were just saying, if we didn't have to do anything, we think that that's going to be so much fun. But then the first thing we're going to start to do is figure out how to fuck it all up because that's it's just our nature. And just look at every rock star that's ever happened. Look how many athletes at the top of their game. Look how many politicians, how many popular people, even spiritual people, when they really get to that top, they go down, right? As above, so below.
They don't have their ego in check. And the image of Shiva Nataraj, where he's doing the Ananda Tandava, which is the dance of destruction. He has one foot on a small creature that looks like it might be a small child, but it's actually a little demon.
Thank God.
It could be a little demon or it could be representative of the ego.
Yeah.
So he has one foot on the ego. It doesn't crush it. He has his foot on it. And then the iconography is like, he has his hand up, the Abhaya Mudra, which is like do not fear. And then this, which I believe is the mudra pointing down to his leg of grace. So when your heart is concealed, to exit out of samsara, have grace, connect back to your heart, and like kind of cycle through. But keeping your foot on the ego because, otherwise it makes the world a very small place. It limits us. Like you said, we had like infinite potentiality until, like you say, we develop these we wrap these personalities around it. I like that because it's like a collection of stories. And we were speaking earlier about how, the body is like crystallized information. It's a collection of experiences that we've had in our tissues. We were talking about like organ meat and like grass fed organs and stuff, and how like a lot of the food today doesn't have the natural enzymes inside of them that helps you to break something down. So that's why you can get like, I don't know, grass fed milk, but it's pasteurized and it doesn't have the ingredient for the alchemy. And so then I'm going to tie it back to Shraddha as far as like we have this technology inside of us, certainly this spiritual technology, but it's like I don't know, there's like our like energies being sucked out in so many ways, and there's like devices that are kind of stealing away. It's like taking away our ability to kind of like process and digest life. And the thing is, we're doing it willingly, but there's like dopamine addiction and like gaming and scrolling and just like so many things that kind of like pull from us that it kind of like I think this is best exemplified in creation story. So in this creation story, the gods created man, and then the primary god was like, "Oh no, like what do I do? He's always going to be asking me questions, and like I'm not gonna have a day off. Like what did I do? Oh my god, what was I thinking?" And the other gods were like, "Oh well, hide on a mountain." He's like, "No, no, no, I made them too smart. They're gonna climb up the mountain." He's like, "Oh, okay, so hide in the bottom of the ocean." He's like, "No, no, no, they'll develop drills. One day they'll find me, and then I won't have a day of rest." And then one of the gods whispered, said, I'll never find you
Yeah, yeah, that's so fantastic.
there.
It's so crazy that you went that way because you know me, I love the origin. So you took it right there. And I was thinking almost the same exact thing, literally, like you pretty much explained it. So sorry, everybody, if it's a little redundant, but I feel compelled. And you put it in such a great traditional way. I'll bring it back to a little personal way that I think of it. And then sometimes some people have said this to me that it's maybe it's a little dark for them, but like I said, that's why you know the analog version of ourselves is to put that light on. We have the light is within inside ourselves. That's where we're the humans. The light people is basically what we
Hue.
are, human. So this idea that when you're talking about this hole, basically, right, that we're trying to fill, well, it's part of how we're designed. It's how we were able to do this. I'm going to tell the same story you told. It's exactly the same. And you said it in a perfect ancient language. And now I'm going to say it how I see it in a complete non metaphorical way. Um, Potentiality is that it's everything all the time, all at once, infinitely. So there's no way for that, as you're calling it, God, to somehow not know itself, not be with itself, somehow not be separate from itself. So that trick where you're saying hide inside of them, when I look at that, that is the original separation. By going inside of us was the ultimate separation. So that thing we're trying to fill is that separation. Now we talk about like because I hear this. I mean, this is really common. Like if especially in atheism, this is what I hear all the time. You know, if there was a God, how can all these terrible things happen? If there's a God, how dumb can this God be? I mean, it's so obvious what's going on. I mean, here, these are the same things that's going on. And again, I don't necessarily use the word God, though I do, but I don't, but I do, but I don't. I think the word really ultimately that covers for everybody is source, right? We're talking about how is this thing that everything comes from so dumb that it doesn't know what's going on. So what I say is that for source to do anything, to have any action separate from any other action, the first thing it has to do is separate from itself. So there has to be source and no source.
Purusha and Prakriti.
Has to be. There's no other way. Because if it has a little bit of source, then again, it's going to be in the sea. You know where it is. It's going to be in the mountain. You're going to find it. So it has to literally be a separation. And I believe that ultimately, again, this is English words and they don't necessarily have the full meaning. We'd have to get into this discussion. But even I think ultimately that generator, that engine is evil itself. That is, when we talk about evil, all evil is that space where there's absolutely no source whatsoever. It's the
Mm.
far end spectrum.
I love that definition of it. I thought for a second you were going to say evil. See, the veil
Yeah,
is
yeah,
sealed.
yeah, 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 yeah.
See, this is break down the barriers.
Yes,
So
I,
it's
I,
fun.
I come from the East Village, so I always say it's Evil East Village.
That's funny.
Yeah, so that's how I break it down. Just means you're from the East Village.
That's funny.
Yeah, but anyway, so this real opposite of light, right? Pure light, all the way to pure darkness. So that source had to create that, had to separate that space. And then we are that in between. We have the one foot on that ego and then the one foot on grace. We are half those things. And the gift that the source gave us is that we have free will and we choose. But that hole is real, that missingness, that separation is breaking our heart every breath. And that's why we breathe. We inhale to get that spirit and then it gets exhaled because if we held on to that breath, we wouldn't be here. We'd go back to source.
Yeah, this reminds me of that, so moving to St. Pete and kind of like my personal journey here is like, living on my own for the first time ever, really. I've always like paid my own way and I've always been an independent woman in a lot of ways, but I had, like I live with my sister, I live with partners. And so, especially the last relationship that I was in with a person who was very avoidant, I'm very grateful because it let me shine light on some codependent stuff. And, in codependency, you reach for another person to fulfill needs. Now, having relationships meet needs some of the time is normal and healthy. Interdependence is for sure. But I was in a relationship with someone who was like way on the other end of it, and so it caused me to be more resourceful in myself, and then really, really look at me trying to beyond guide someone, trying to sort of manipulate the path of it because there was like a verbal agreement that, like, oh, okay, yeah, I do want to do this. I'm like, okay, well, let's come on, let's hustle, let's go. And then the person wasn't responding. And I got attached to that because I thought, well, you said it like, see on the dotted line, you said, all right, well, I know how to get you there. But I was over empathizing, and there was like a sort of energy leak in the way that I was giving too much in that way, and it was depleting me. Whereas if I learned how to recycle that back in, which I'm doing now, there's this wholeness to where it becomes very apparent. It's like, oh, no, this person is not doing that. That means they don't want that. And I don't necessarily need that anyway. But if you're not going to meet me, it's almost like I lost interest.
Mm-hmm.
And any sort of addiction, any sort of like, because codependency is a form of addiction to people. Um, we're reaching outside of ourselves for something or someone to fulfill that need. And it feels like there's a hole in you, like how Sully was talking about. Now, as far as this like dance between like, consciousness and human is sort of, exemplified in the Ardhanarishwara, which is half Shiva, half Shakti. It's, yin yang, sun and moon, like all these things that kind of the chaos and the, contentment, I guess. All these things are kind of swirling around each other, but there's some sort of balance, and I feel like they're kind of like whole within themselves. But then, like to experience one another, they have to kind of like wrap around. And I feel like that's some of the stuff that you were talking about. There's like a reflection, a refraction, so that consciousness can experience itself. Because otherwise, it needs something to refract off of.
It's crazy. I mean, everything you just said right there just made me think of pure physics.
Science,
Yeah, yeah, pure. It's torsions, right? Tortuaries, torus, right? The if you look at what's happening with like black holes that are forming basically our universe, that's you're talking about that creation. And again, when you look at physics, there is everything that we look at. There's the stationary pole, and then right next to the end of that field is the kinetic. So that when you did this whole thing, I mean, that's the tertiary that's happening, and it's that static, the source, the potential, next to the emptiness, the vacuum, and those two entities being next to each other. That's what creates the Maya, the third dimensional reality, which is not real. It's literally what you described. It's the two existing together. So there's source, which is the dot. There's the experiencing of the source, which is the line. Yeah. Oh yeah, look at that. So that's fantastic. Right there it is, right? The dot, and then there's the line. Got it right there. What else can you say? And then from that dot and from that line creates the combination of the dot and the line together, which is in digital terms is the 0 1 0 1 0 1 binary. It's a dot and a line.
It really is.
Okay, and that all those combination of those two things makes the Maya, makes the illusion, the third dimensional reality. That's why everything is always grouped in threes: the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. You have Vishnu, Krishna,
Vishnu, Shiva,
and
and Brahma.
You have the beginning, the middle, the end, and all over music with the 1 4 5, the 2 5 1. You'll find that that's the whole reason why the pyramids are pyramids. It's the whole idea of the meditation. You have the 2 points to the Godhead. Everything is moving in those groups of threes. It's that storytelling, that's who we are, is manifested in those potentialities of the actual source, and then observing the source, and then whatever we choose between those 2 points. That is our life, that's our being, that's our purpose for being here.
Choose your adventure.
Yeah. And that's